All right, joining us now on the podcast is a candidate in the 20th House District, Noah Arbit. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so we wanted to have you on the podcast, first of all, to congratulate you on being the top fundraiser among House Democrat freshmen. And as you showed us, you raised more money in your first reporting cycle than any other House Democrat has before. The only person on the Democratic caucus to raise more than you in this last cycle was the House Minority Leader, Donald Lazinski. So first of all, tell our listeners how you did it.
Well, thanks for that, and I really appreciate it. Well, historically, Democrats have not had the greatest luck in the West Bloomfield Commerce seat. I always laugh. We nominated candidates who are either criminals or transplants, and this year I'm the only candidate in my primary who grew up right here in West Bloomfield, who's lived my entire life in this district. I mean, my neighbor growing up was Lisa Brown, the last Democrat elected here, and I was best friends with her son in middle school. And I'm sure some will say, he's from West Bloomfield. Of course, he's raising money, but like you said, I've not only outraised any other candidate who's run in the seat before, but all of them, or at least had the biggest first quarter. And so I think the reason is I'm a known, proven leader in my community. The fact that I started my political career organizing in West Bloomfield and Commerce for Hillary Clinton, there's a word in Yiddish that we like to say, shared. It means it was meant to be. And then working for the governor, founding and leading the Michigan Democrat Jewish Caucus, serving at the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office, people in my community, they know me. They see my values, I think, and believe in my capacity to represent my community with faith and fidelity. And I think, I'm just so grateful and humbled by that support. And of course, hard work helps, being relentless on the phones, it's just, that's kind of what it takes.
Now, did you take on this run thinking that this was going to be a competitive seat politically, or did you take this on thinking that your biggest challenge was going to be in the primary?
Well, no. So I announced, I've been, sort of planning, really kind of how this happened is, when Pulver lost the 39th district in November of 2020, I kind of called around and, called the township elected officials saying, hey, you're going to run, I'll run your campaign, whatever. So I worked for the House Caucus for a while, and they kind of had me as point person in West Bloomfield because, I'm from here and I've organized here, and no one really wanted to do it. And I said, well, okay, I guess I'll do it. I sort of have built a network in the area, particularly among the Jewish community, which is significant in the new district. It's going to be about 50% of the primary electorate. West Bloomfield is the most Jewish municipality in the state of Michigan. This is the most Jewish district in the state of Michigan. But I ran because I was sick and tired of my community being gerrymandered. West Bloomfield has been split. This is the first time in 20 years that my hometown is going to have one unified voice in Lansing, and I want to be that voice, and we'll work hard to do that and to be the best representative I can be. But to answer your question, I was fully prepared to run in a very competitive, top targeted district against a two-term incumbent, against Ryan Berman. And frankly, I'm still working on the assumption that there's a very likely chance that he will be my opponent if he doesn't make it through that attorney general nomination in April. He's never faced an opponent who can raise the resources that I can. And so like I said, his first opponent in 2018 ended up being a criminal. So I'm really looking forward to whoever my opponent is, showcasing the best of what West Bloomfield, Commerce, and the Lakes area has to offer, and making sure that I think a good representative is at the intersection of what their community prioritizes and what they personally believe in. And I believe that I have that for this community.
As a Democrat, I'm wondering what you think the best strategy for the party is, being that this is the midterm, the Biden's first midterm. Usually the party of the president suffers some struggles a lot in the polls. What do you think about that, and how would you tell other Democrats to deal with that this year in Michigan at state level?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, I can't speak necessarily for other Democrats, but I know I'm focused on issues that I know that West Bloomfield and Commerce cares about, and tackling Michigan's mental health crisis, supporting public education, boosting regional competitiveness, innovation, and job growth, as well as, my, not pet issue, but, something I care deeply about is revising and strengthening Michigan's hate crimes law, to actually keep our community safe. And I think the reason why I'm focused on those issues is because I know that they're really important to my community. And so the best thing that I think Democrats can do is nominate candidates who, are known in their communities, who are representative of and know their communities. That's something that's, I think, just so incredibly important, is that we get folks who are candidates who are known, are representative of their communities, and actually, have their finger on the pulse of what's going on. That's, I think, the best. We have the right policies, we have the right message as Democrats. What we need are, the best salesmen and saleswomen, and that's when candidate quality is, I think, really, really important.
So I definitely wear my heart on my sleeve for young people in politics. So last year, when it came to young people in the Michigan House, the headlines really were not that great. We had Representative Jewel Jones trying to sneak a handcuff key into jail. We had a very toxic relationship between Representatives Manugian and Marino that made a lot of headlines. So here's my question for you. Do young people have a bad rap when it comes to knocking on doors after last year's headlines?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, everything that I've heard from people in my district, certainly, and this is actually something really interesting. In addition to my district being the most Jewish district in Michigan, 80% of my primary electorate are over the age of 65. And I actually find that older people are my base of support, and that it's older people who are telling me, we need new blood, we need bold new leadership here in our community, and to remind people that it's kind of interesting. Like I'm this kind of, well, I won't say self-described, but dynamic, energetic candidate, representing an older community that is known for being a place where a lot of people retire to, and but the fact is, I mean, from growing up with incredibly strong relationships with my grandparents, both on both my parents' side. I really kind of grew up making matzo ball soup with my bubby in her house, and I feel like I have a really strong connection to the older generations. And I think again, I'll throw out another Jewish saying, it's the door of a door from generation to generation. Like, that's what we believe in our community. It's about what kind of Michigan that we want to building Michigan that not only cares about how we raise our kids, but how we treat our seniors. I don't think that young people have a bad rep at all. I think people are looking for a new type of leadership. Politicians. I've always been saying that. I think having worked with a lot of politicians and seeing them up close, there's a type of politician that sort of only wants to build relationships with people that they think can help them, whether they're seeing dollar signs above someone's head or whether they live in their district. And to me, I don't know if I can swear on this podcast, but I think that's ass backwards. I want to build relationships with people because that's inherently valuable. And then once you build relationships with people, then you can ask them for help. That's what I believe in. And I think that that's kind of what a lot of young people believe in too. Is like, we're not pressed for time. We're gonna do everything. That ethic of like, meet anyone, anytime, any place, anywhere. Like, that's who I am. That's what I know that a lot of the young candidates who are out there running. Jason Morgan out in Ann Arbor, Joey Andrews out in the Lakeshore District. Like, we have some really great candidates who are running this year who are young, and I'm super excited to sort of put a new face on the Michigan legislature.
I was going to say kudos for using one of my favorite words, ass backwards.
Well, several years ago, we saw a new generation of young people getting elected to the House, and now those young people are kind of on their way out. So what do you think this new generation of young candidates, the 2022 young candidates, what do they bring to the table that the other generation did not? What's new about you guys?
That's a hard question. I mean, I think that, frankly, we've had an economy that hasn't worked for young people in the same way that it has worked, for our parents or for our grandparents. And I think that really putting a fine point on that and getting people to understand that this isn't your grandma's economy, with rising costs of, of an education, all of these things are these dynamics of, building a safe and a stable life and career and family. They're all turned upside down. All of these variables are new and different. And, if we don't have policymakers that actually understand the challenges of being a young person, and, the idea that every young person is going to be able to afford and own a home is not really looking like it's a feasible reality right now. And so what can we do? And, one of the issues that I'm really passionate about is, this reduction of brain drain, making sure that young people, can, in my community, when young people move out of town and find their jobs, and both of my brothers, I have one in Chicago, I have a twin brother in Chicago and an older brother in California who works for Tesla. And, when they moved, my parents weren't unhappy, and we weren't unhappy for them. It meant they were fulfilling their ambitions. But it's time that we don't see that as mutually exclusive. Why isn't it something natural that, our kids can fulfill their professional ambitions right here and stay and build their families and communities? That's the perspective that I bring too, is like, and of course it's not a 6-year job and it's not a 10-year job. It's a generational thing that we have to work on. And I think that's something that's really important too, that I bring to the table too. It's like, I think generally people want to stay in their communities if we can. And so making sure that those opportunities, and it's not just about economic incentives, by the way, it's about the policies that make people either want to or don't want to, build a family in Michigan. Everything from affordable childcare, paid family leave, to, policies that make LGBT Michiganders or people want to move here and live here. If we don't have, frankly, Ryan Berman is out here trying to add, vaccination status to the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Code. I'm a gay man. I'm asking, where is the protections for LGBT Michiganders in the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Code? It's about right priorities versus wrong priorities. And frankly, I think young people have it. I think I have it for my district. And, that's what I think that we bring to the table. No nonsense. It's time to get our acts together.
Last question here before we move on to Ed's our polls here with some new polling numbers. You mentioned Ryan Berman a couple times, and I know you put out a press release regarding him just last week. Are you getting the sense on the ground that he's actually looking at running for re-election as opposed to continuing his attorney general bid?
Well, I can't pretend, I can't speak for Representative Ryan Berman, but everything that I'm working on the assumption that there's a good chance that he will be my opponent in the general election, and frankly, I'm planning for it.
All right. Well, let's bring in Ed Zarpoulis here. We've had so much fun, Ed. Why don't we do it again?
I got one question for the young gentleman running for the House. Are you going to have Bob Seger part of your campaign since he lives in your neighborhood?
I keep saying this to people. I get Bob Seger as my constituent.
Well, that's why I'm asking, because that gets you old school.
Hey, I love it. I remember 10 years ago, my mom and I were driving, and we were at this intersection in Orchard Lake Village, and she had it must have been like 2005. There right next to us at the stoplight was Bob Seger. She pulled out, I was mortified. She pulled out his CD and said, "Hey, Bob, love your new album." And he's like, yeah, thank you. Mortified.